Welcome to the Paranormal Stakeout Radio TV show with Larry Lawson. As a former career law enforcement officer and law enforcement educator, Larry focuses on the use of tried and true law enforcement investigative techniques in conducting paranormal investigations. Despite his experience and training, Larry also keeps an open mind to discussions on topics that deal with evidence that are not quite as physical in nature. Paranormal Stakeout guests are professionals in the field of the paranormal and parapsychology, conducting the investigations and research needed to further the cause of paranormal study. Larry advocates an agenda of standardization of structure and training in the field of paranormal investigation and research for the purpose of one day being able to produce the evidence needed to convince a jury of the existence of the paranormal. Whether it is ghosts, UFOs, unsolved mysteries, hauntings or cryptids, no topic is beyond the investigative reach of Larry Lawson and the Paranormal Stakeout Radio TV show team. Now, here is the host of the Paranormal Stakeout Radio TV show, Larry Lawson.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, and we're really glad to be back with you tonight on a show where everything involving the paranormal is on the table for discussion. Want to make a couple of quick announcements here. If you want to find out a little bit more about me and my group, the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation and Indian River Hauntings, go to our website at paranormalfbi.com or indianriverhauntings.com. If you'd like to see a little bit about what we do on our investigations, check us out on YouTube at Indian River Hauntings 2341. Want to send me a note? Talk to me a little bit about what you think about the show. Have some questions. You can get a hold of me at ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org. That's ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org. Don't forget to also check out all the other great programming here on the X Zone Radio and TV Broadcast Network, and you can find that at xzbn.net. Got an interesting show for you tonight. Old friend, somebody who's been on the show before, and want to bring back to have her discuss her profession. And I'd like to introduce Miss Mary Youngblood. Mary is a psychic, medium, and certified hypnotist located in South Florida. She's been a hypnotist paired with her psychic and medium abilities for the past 13 years. She supports her patients in various forms of healing, such as quitting smoking, overcoming fear, connecting to past loved ones, and the like. She's also a mentor to individuals seeking an understanding of quantum physics and the development of intuitive abilities. Mary, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Larry. Thanks. It's so good to be back.
Yeah, it's been way too long, and a lot of folks, this may be the first time they've heard you talk about how you got to where you're at. So, can you share with us a little bit about how you tell us about your journey, how you got to where you're at today?
Yeah. So, really, I guess the first thing would be to say that looking back, as far as I can see, I've always been extra sensitive. So, as a child growing up, having these sensitivities felt rather normal. So, it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I kind of started questioning what was going on. But it was very common to see spirits, to have paranormal activity going on around me. This to me was normal. So I grew up this way, and I later did find out, not that it matters, because a lot of psychics and mediums get their gifts in different ways, but it does seem to have been kind of passed down. But I really started discovering probably in my teens when I really started to question some of the experiences that were happening. Often as a child, seeing loved ones who've passed, not just my own, but others around other people, spirits that had lingered, and even other realms, such as for people who believe in angels and things like that. So I was very open to all of this. And in my later teens is really when I started to identify what was going on with me, because now I was I had heard about psychics. I understood, like, Sylvia Brown was coming out, things like this. So without having internet and exposure to a lot of this, now I was starting to see, like, oh, this is what's happening. So it was like a discovery process. By the time I was in my late teens, probably approaching 19 and 20, these gifts, like, I was starting to understand, but they were coming out even stronger and more intense. So I had a lot
Mhm.
of paranormal around those years.
Well, when you were a child, did you discuss it with your parents?
There were
Were you able to discuss it with your parents, and how did they
I
react?
Yeah, thanks. My parents were very open, so I was lucky in that perspective that there seems to be a little bit of open-mindedness and intuitiveness. So I was felt very easy talking to my mother, especially because she was very open-minded and had a few experiences of her own. So easily I could tell her if I saw grandma standing by so and so, and she was, she would validate that for me, even though she herself wasn't having that experience or seeing that. That was very helpful. I feel like for a lot of children or a lot of young people, to have parents that don't know or dismiss it as imagination, can be uh, kind of harmful to the child, in a sense that you you kind of have this factor of self-denial, because you're having an experience and all the adults around you are telling you you're not having it. And so it can
Mhm.
create a lot of confusion. So I feel very blessed that I didn't have to overcome that. But
Right.
yeah, it was very, very easy to talk to people around me, mostly within the family.
What type of medium do you consider yourself?
Wow, that's a really good question, because you have so many different, mediums describe themselves as so many different ways, as evidentiary mediums, you have channel medium, you have all these different mediums. I would say for myself, I don't know, I kind of get a little bit of all of it wrapped up into one, because I do get sometimes I get the absolute specifics. So it's always specifics. Um and then I've also had instances where the person's energy also comes through me, and then I'm taking on the characteristics and mannerisms of that person.
Mhm. Well, when you were saying specifics a moment ago, I kind of explained what that means. I'm not sure I understood.
Well, for instance, the spirit, the individual, the loved one that I'm connecting to will often bring me things that are so interpersonal that no one would even know or could have known. There's no amount of research that could have where there's no other reason that I should know this information than the person I'm telling it to, and obviously the one who has
I see what you're
passed.
saying.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying then. Um, which kind of it goes into a next question. How eh, cold reading, you've heard that term used before. How important is that in your work, or if that makes sense? How do you read people by how do you see what do you see? Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah. So it's interesting because it comes, to me, it comes in different ways. For instance, it's really about picking up on the energy. So the energy
All
sometimes
right.
comes through in different ways. For instance, you were saying, well, maybe like a cold reading, or just when I sit with someone, a lot of times the people I sit with, I've never seen before. These are new
Mhm.
clients or people passing through, or got the number, this and that. And instantly, when I'm in the presence of someone, um, and I'm going forward with reading, instantly for me, information just starts coming. If I say,
Mhm.
it's about, like, as soon as I get into your vibration, all the information, past, present, future, and it's kind of in these, I read, the information comes in the most fine, thin layers. And so we're these layers of energy. And so the information comes to me rapidly, but I seem to get, readers seem to get all that information just through the vibration of the person.
you actually hear them speaking or see them speaking, or do you?
Both. So
Okay.
sometimes it's, it's hard to explain. Like sometimes it is an outer audible sound, but still not what maybe someone would expect as you and I having a conversation. A lot of times you can hear them and they'll come right into your thoughts like, hey, and you'll be like, yeah, like, so sometimes I communicate that way. Other times I'll see the spirit very clearly standing beside or off to the side. And then that spirit, it's like a thought. It's like a telepathic. They're giving me information through seeing them. Other times it's very, more of a physical, and it's not like, for instance, a spirit will come to me of a loved one, and immediately before I even see the person, I'll feel how they passed, or I'll feel the tragedy.
Such as a gunshot wound, a car accident, something like
A
that.
hanging, a gunshot wound, a
Okay.
stabbing, stuff like that. So it's very, it really just depends. I don't ever know what I'm going to get.
So often, and I'm sure you've heard this before. Well, if you're a psychic, can you get me the lottery numbers for the week? That type of thing.
Everybody wants
What?
to know that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you get that yourself. But why is it that you could sit down, and excuse my way for describing this, but you could sit down three folks with psychic ability next to each other, and all three will tell you a different variation of a story or what they're reading about you. Why? Looking at from my mind, because I'm as sensitive as a rock. If it's the story about me, everybody's going to say the same thing. Why does that not happen? Why aren't all the stories the same when they're
Yeah.
talking to?
Good
Go ahead.
question too, because I feel what's happening is that each psychic, you'll, or medium, whatever you're picking, whoever you're sitting in front of, the energy is going to come at us a little bit different, or we're going to go into that energy a little bit different. So we're all receiving, we each receive in kind of a different way. So for instance, if all three of us were sitting in front of you, the psychic over here, the medium over here might be tapping into the emotional patterns that are set in your vibration, and that individual might be reading more along this lines, and another psychic over here might tap in and find there's a loved one trying to push through. So and then also, maybe another psychic is reading your physical nature and what's to come, and so there's that. And then there's also an aspect of, I take reading in my gifts very seriously, in a sense, as far as I respect them. One thing that has helped me throughout the years is that I'm constantly in tune with myself, and I'm constantly in tune with taking care of myself. Psychics in general, just like people, they may have the gift, an extreme gift of pinpointing specific things, but still be reading through their own filters. They've got unfinished business. So if they have unfinished business or things they're not paying attention to within their own lives, they may say, you're going to get that red Corvette.
Well, I want to finish it. We got to take our first break,
Sure.
but I want to complete that thought, because that's a question a lot of folks have on psychics and whether or not the information they're getting is real. So with that, stay with us, folks. Lots of questions for Mary Youngblood. We'll be back after these messages. And we are back with my guest, Mary Youngblood. Mary, getting back to where we were before, and maybe I phrased it kind of wrong. One of the questions that folks have is that, once again, if a psychic is reading me, they should be able to tell me exactly what's happening to me. And I know you, and if you got the three sitting next to each other and they give me different stories, how can you explain to me, how can you make me understand that all three are actually telling me what they see honestly? Does that make a little more sense?
Definitely. So
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to clarify now that's because that was kind of one way, but how do we find out? Is this person for real? Like, is this person really
Mhm.
accurate? How can I trust? And I'll tell you this, a lot of people, especially if they're just investigating or trying it for the first time, usually people, unless they're doing it for fun, might be in a vulnerable state. That's why we're usually the last person on the block, for other things other than fun that people might go to. So I think it is important to know the difference. And one of the first things that I'll tell you is trust your intuition. We all have that gut feeling, even if you don't call it intuition, that gut feeling. It may not even be just the right reader. Maybe they're not a charlatan. Maybe they're not the right reader, but usually you should be able to feel something but I'll tell you one thing to watch out for. Definitely, if the reading gets started and you're not identifying with anything that person is saying, most likely they're not doing you any favors. They're not accurate. They're not
Well,
readers.
well, when you say they're not readers, are you suggesting that there are people out there, obviously in all walks of life, that aren't real? They're charlatans, they're fakes. How does, other than not connecting with you, are there any other ways that people can tell if somebody is pulling their leg?
Money. These people will
Ah,
string you
it's
along with
always about the
money.
money.
They'll string
Hmm.
you along with money. It's kind of sad. I've had people come that I've had to fix, these problems with, and they had been pouring money. First thing they'll do is they'll maybe sit down and they'll give you all this information and, make you feel good and things like that. But it ends up being lots of money. They'll start out saying this, or, okay, well, now they'll find things that you don't
What do you
know.
mean? What do you mean? But how do they draw the money out of you? This is interesting. How do they do that?
Like you have by making up things that you might have an attachment or a negative spirit is
Okay.
attached to you. We got to do this healing, we got to do this court. They'll make all these things, and they might even use language that's familiar, that people in the spiritual or metaphysical are like kind of used to. But you'll see that it never ends. You got to come back next week for this, you got to do this, and they're just pouring, and they're not seeing any results. So there's
But every time they walk in, it's another $50, $100, something along
So,
those lines.
yeah, sometimes hundreds of
Hmm.
dollars. So definitely I would look for that. It's probably the main thing is, and then wanting you to be dependent. So look for dependency, wanting to come back, always the next problem, something else that needs to be fixed. They want you to kind of be dependent on them. And really it's about money.
And and I mentioned cold reading during the first segment, and that's what a lot of these people do is they're good. I was a police investigator. I can look at somebody and know whether or not I'm hitting home on certain areas. And there's a lot of that out there, I'm sure. Uh,
Definitely.
how often do you see folks like that using the internet to try and do backgrounds on people? Have you ever seen that?
Um, yes, I personally haven't had a lot of experience with that firsthand,
Hmm.
but have certainly had plenty of that information given to me by colleagues.
So
That
just folks beware.
it does happen. But I
Well, it
will say
happens.
this, there's more from my experience. There are
Hmm.
certainly more real than there are phonies out there.
And the easiest way is just listening to how they're talking, and if they
List
just
Yep. I would say
okay.
listen, find, it's true psychic, or even if it's an intuitive or a card reader or something like that, they're going to hit on, there's going to be points and things again that
Right, that's what
that they couldn't find that, how are they gonna know that my dog died when I was 5? You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna find that on the internet or for the searching and stuff like that. So I mean, you should be able to find with a true psychic or medium that's guiding you. You should be a lot of things that you personally can identify with. You
okay,
know,
great.
and kind of like before, like I said, a psychics read on layers. So, as they're doing the reading, things that might come up emotional or traumas that they might pick up from the past. This certainly isn't stuff that you could dig up and find anywhere. A lot of these people hold this, they don't even tell anyone, and it might come up in a reading. So look for validations, things that have happened and that this person is hitting on.
And there's been plenty of times too that I've seen where there's some general things you could hit, like you've had a death in the last 5 years, haven't you, in your family? Well, most people have,
Most people
or
have stuff.
something along those lines. So just beware, go in with knowledge, go in with an open mind
That's right. And I
and open
also
eyes.
I tell my clients too, and I would encourage other people, it's fine to ask questions. I do, when you're getting your reading, if you're not sure, ask specific questions so that the psychic has the opportunity to answer those questions.
Such as when you say
Maybe something that obviously that no one else would know, or you can ask for instance, if it's mediumship, or you could ask for something for a specific loved one. If it's psychic, I might ask, well, maybe something that, again, that nobody else would know, maybe something personal to me, what happened December of 2014, a week before Christmas, or I don't know, you could ask, not that you're putting them on the spot, but you can find information. And I feel like some people, because they don't want to give too much information, will sit very still and very quiet, and that is okay. But I also feel that it's important to have dialogue, and for people not to be afraid. And then asking, you're asking what you're coming, because you want the information. Obviously, you're getting a reading for a reason. But ask them to look at different areas. Then, ask them, say, well, what about my emotional stability? Where's my, what about my subconscious? Ask things that are not even very tangible, perhaps.
Okay, but very good. Now you've gone on to just doing readings. To you do hypnosis work, correct?
That's right.
What made you head down that direction also? And where did you get your training? How did you train to be a hypnotist?
That's so fascinating. With with everything else that I do, one thing I've always been fascinated with is the mind. I'm fascinated with the mind. I want to know. I would just want to know, like, everything about the mind. And so my curiosity led me to digging in more and more to reading about hypnosis. And in 2014, I was working at a spiritual center, and I met a gentleman who was coming in, who was now going to be doing past life regression classes at this facility. He ended up being my teacher. So I ended up he ended up having the class and offering the course. So I was able to take it. I kind of begged him to do it. Actually, I was so fascinated. And one of the cool things he did, he studied several different types of hypnosis. And it was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating to me. So I was able to take the course, which was wonderful. It clicked with me. It was something that I knew it was something that I was supposed to add into my practice. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was the most fascinating thing, understanding the subconscious mind. I got certified in 2015, and I've been doing that also steadily since, and it's just been amazing.
Wow. Now, when you say certified, who certifies you?
Well, there's lots of different places where you can go. So you can go to there's different colleges and different schools. Got certified with what's called the NGH. So the NGH is the National Guild of Hypnotists. Gotcha. They've been around for a very long time. And so that's the course that I studied, and that's where I'm certified with, and I'm still a standing member with the guild. However, through the training, I was also trained in techniques that he himself, he's since passed about 3 years ago, Ronald DeWald, had incorporated and had come out on his own, creating methods that he had studied with different people, and which was really cool because it kind of opened up, and it also explores more of the quantum or metaphysical side and approach to hypnosis and hypnotherapy as well. So you have such a variety to work with, as far as it's all subconscious work. So it's all the same that you can do. In other words, I can go with losing weight and creating good habits and all of those wonderful things that we commonly know people go for hypnosis for. But then I go beyond that and I explore past lives through past life regression therapy. And I also explore, like I said, more of the metaphysical or quantum side of it, which would be maybe an approach that I could take with somebody who was more open, or even wanting to maybe expand and grow in those areas.
In your work with past regression, kind of rings a note with me, simply because in my past work in law enforcement, I worked a lot with child victims, and past regression therapy was used oftentimes with kids back a number of years ago. Have you had that type of has anybody needed your services for something like that?
Yes.
Being abused? Okay.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I do.
How Go ahead. Go ahead.
I know. I was just gonna go. Yeah, I do. I actually do. I get a lot of that work. I get a lot of healing work.
Hmm. Okay.
Uh,
Well, when we're about ready to take our next break, this is going fast again. So hang with us.
so
I got a
fun.
lot more questions to ask. So, folks, stay with us on Paranormal Stakeout. We'll be back with Mary Youngblood after these messages. So, stay tuned. We're back with my guest, Mary Youngblood. We're talking about mediums, psychics, and hypnotists. Interesting story. So, how does your work doing both psychic readings and hypnosis, tell me how they work together and how one side complements the other?
Yeah, which is cool because they certainly do. Um, there's two parts to it. For me, as the hypnotist and the psychic medium, it certainly puts a really neat, a really cool twist, I guess, from my perspective, because um, I have an extra, because I get that sixth sense, and I'm able to kind of use that within the sessions. But what's really, really cool is, what I find fascinating is when the client gets to kind of have the experience. Here's why. When we go into the trance state, what's happening is that we're bypassing, we're going beyond the conscious mind. The conscious mind is the mind that's going to interfere and stuff. So we got to get that out of the way first. And that's really what hypnosis is about, bypassing that critical factor that's going to interfere with what we're trying to access. So with that out of the way, we now are in this state of openness. Our subconscious is wide open. What's really cool for most people is that we all have a sixth sense. We're all tapped in to a certain degree, but the conscious mind is what usually gets in the way for us ever being able to have any kind of experience. With that out of the way and going into a session, oftentimes the person will have their own experience, or sixth sense, if you will, throughout that. Such as, I've had people who have doing healing work, and something might come up in regards to healing a wound or trauma because of a loss of a loved one, where in session, that loved one, that the person or the client is very aware, or can sometimes see or feel or sense that person coming and connecting with them. Oftentimes I am very aware that is going to happen, and I'll ask, either they'll see and let me know someone is so and so is here. And it's it's usually a very healing, a very nice moment. And a lot of times I might guide and say, okay, the presence of so and so is here. Is this someone you do want to connect with? And most often that person is coming through to help with whatever healing is needing to take place. But the powerful moment is that they're not having me as the channel in between, as the medium. They're getting to have that connection themselves as if they were the medium. So those can be very powerful experiences, and it's not uncommon. So even if a loved one particularly may not come through, it's definitely not uncommon when people are in that state to have maybe a metaphysical, or what you might call a paranormal or a spiritual or psychic experience.
Mm-hmm. What somebody's in pain, you're working with them through hypnosis to heal that pain. What are the chances are that when this person comes forward, or how can you tell if somebody comes forward, that it's not just their own mind creating the person coming forward to help them heal? Does that make sense? It's not
Yeah.
so much a paranormal experience, but is it actually their own mind bringing this person forward to help them heal? How can you tell the difference?
Generally by the person, the client who's having the experience will usually bring details or connection. It's a distinction of that
Mhm.
person's energy coming or being above them or around them. Could it be, are there times when the mind, the subconscious, could bring up stuff for healing? Absolutely. But all of the experience that I've had with that, it's more of an experience of, here is this presence and it's coming to me, or I'm feeling it with me, rather than a thought or an image or a memory coming forward.
Okay. Um, how often do you see a loved one coming forward during this regression therapy?
Wow. I I would just say it's not uncommon. I'm not
Mhm.
sure how often. I do have some specific clients that it tends to have that. Well, I see them more regular. People that I see more
Mm.
regularly who have had it once typically have it happen again. So, but I would still say, oh my goodness, once a month. You
Okay.
know, it's just really not uncommon.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we've spent a lot of time talking about your practice and your work that you do. But tell me, let's go into my world a little bit and talk about ghosts and your connection. And have you experienced, other than in your sessions, have you experienced the paranormal, the other side? And what do you think it is?
Yeah. Wow. Um, Having had so many paranormal experiences of my own, the other side or the afterlife, as far as
And what do you think
what
it is? What do you,
happens.
what do you, yeah, what do you
Yeah.
think it is?
I have a belief or a philosophy that my belief is based really on my personal experiences, some the
Mhm.
experiences I've witnessed with others, and also a combination of many different spiritual teachings and beliefs. But what seems to be a common thread is a source vibration. Like there's a
Mhm.
source, a center vibration, and it's more of, is this something we're leaving and going to? This is a place where we originated from, we come through, and we just return back to. Collective consciousness has been mentioned. That's part of it too, but I feel as though we enter a state of being, um, when we so it's almost like when we leave, we go back. It's more of a memory of returning to a place that we were so
Okay,
once familiar.
So is this just a stop along the way to reaching a higher spiritual plane? Is this just one stop, or is this it? Do we get sent back if we don't get the don't get it right the first time? Do they send us back? Do we move on? What's your thoughts there?
I do feel that a lot of it is up to the soul. I believe that the soul gets to decide. I don't believe that it's a law that we have to, that
Mhm.
there's any kind of law. Oh, you didn't get it this lesson. Some people do believe in that
Okay.
turnover in that way. I don't believe that. I believe that the soul is free to choose, but I do believe that the soul gets sees the opportunity to have an experience called life, working different things out. For instance, um, I feel that the life is about the experience, about
Mhm.
having the experience. And we get here's some of it's fascinating. Some of the fascinating. So I believe that um that after this we go on, and that this is a place that we can come and we can learn, and we want to not even learn. I think it's more of the we want to experience. If we know, we kind of come from a state of knowing, or this all oneness. If we come from this place of bliss, and we know this is what we know ourselves as, okay, then we're here to experience that knowing. What is that? So we get this all this experience. I think the soul gets to choose. Soul gets to choose the experiences, and that determines how many times that we come back or move
Okay.
on to other planes or other things.
Now, this goes back to something I talked about in the first segment also. And everybody's viewpoint is valid. But why are there so many different viewpoints? And I think you even mentioned it a few minutes ago when you were talking about your own life experiences perhaps skewing or influencing how you see something in somebody else. Does that make sense?
Say that last part one
Okay.
more time,
All
please.
right. So your experiences cause you to filter, maybe that's a better word, what you're seeing in somebody else's life, their aura, their energy, and you're interpreting what you're seeing from them through your own filter, your own experiences in life. And I say that because your description of what you think the other side is certainly could be valid, but there's so many different ones. And it goes back to the question of if you've got 10 people all with psychic ability, why are they all saying something different?
Hmm.
So what I'm getting at is it because of your own filter from your own life experiences? That's how you're interpreting it? Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, it could, yeah, and some of it could definitely could be. I tell you, because it's so interesting, even thinking about that question. Um, the experiences, yeah, some of it because the personal experiences that I've had, and the being so sensitive to energies, and the just the all that entails to that. Wow, so some of that probably is filtered through what I've seen and been connected to, and stuff like that. Um,
And I think that explanation
and
is helpful for people to understand folks
just
with the
trying to
gift.
articulate.
I've
Yeah,
I've been there. But it also helps people that try to understand that are saying it can't be real because I'm getting three different stories.
about
Is
what
it
the other
actually
side is like.
exactly? And I mean, I've heard descriptions of the collective consciousness, and that seems to be a reoccurring theme right now. That we're all part of it, one big ball out there, and parts of it comes out, and we experience that part experiences life on earth, and then it goes back to the collective conscious. I've also heard stories where we leave this life, we go back, and then we go to the next level once we've learned our lesson. So there's just tons of different stories there. And I think if there was a way to explain that to the public, maybe it would make more sense rather than saying it's all hogwash because they're all telling different stories. And that's where I'm getting at. And that
Yeah,
also leads to folks that are tend to be fakes and charlatans too. And
and
that's another worry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, and also this, there's so much information, so many books, and so many people. You got people have had near death experiences that come back and say, this is exactly what I saw. This is what happened. This is what it's
Mm.
like. And you're going to find similarities in all of it. But there may be a piece of, there might be a spark of truth
Connecting
to,
connection. And with that, we got to take our last break,
oh,
though.
yeah.
I got to
Okay.
interrupt you. We got
Okay.
to take our last break. So stay with us, folks. We got one more session here. So don't go away. We'll see you after these messages. And welcome back to the show with my guest tonight, Mary Youngblood. Mary, it's been a real pleasure having you here. Want to make sure everybody remembers to check me out at paranormalfbi.com or indianriverhauntings.com if you want to see a little bit about what we're doing. You can also find us on YouTube at Indian River Hauntings 2341. Don't forget to send me messages. Let me know what you think or any questions you have to ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org, or you can just check out the show at paranormalstakeout.org also. I do want you to all to remember www.xzoneradioandtv.com or xzbn.com to check out all the great programming here on the X Zone Radio and Television Broadcast Network. So check us out. And Mary, how can folks get a hold of you? Do you have a website, or how can folks find you in Stuart, Florida?
Yes, Stuart,
Neighbor.
Florida. Yes, so if you just, I do have a small website connected to the Google. You just put in Google search for Mary Youngblood, psychic medium hypnotist. It pops right up, and there is a website there, and you can has all the ways to contact me. My email is strausshypnosis@gmail.com. But my phone number's on there. All the information's on there. So, yeah.
Terrific, terrific. Well, towards the end of the last session, we were just really trying to talk about how everything is connected. And I think the the answer I kind of got is we still don't know, do we? We still don't know all of the answers to what goes on the other side, do we?
Not fully. And I feel that each person that has their truth, I'm sure has a spark of something, a piece of it, a piece of the mystery. Maybe we all hold a little piece of it. Maybe we're all right, have a little bit of it right. But I would say this, no matter what, I say, what is trust? What is a personal take. You might read, people get information and trying to figure out their own understanding of, like, what do I believe? No, do we
Hmm.
really know what goes on after? I could give so many experiences of that I've had, and like you said, other psychics and mediums might come forward and see this or experience that with it. And I would say for the person that's still kind of questioning, you're going to have to, just find your own truth and, piecing a lot of it together. The common threads, we really don't know, as much as we know, how do we really know, common threads in listening to other people's experiences, near death experiences, people who have had the experience of going and coming back. I would say, when we hear enough of things that are very similar or common, we could probably
Hmm.
lean towards those things. Obviously, the more feedback we get of those, that's a possibility, because again, we're hearing the experiences of individuals that have no connection whatsoever, yet are bringing back very similar information.
Well, and I firmly, and this is just my opinion on this, that whatever truth is out there is definitely tainted by our own filters of our lives and what we've experienced, and that's how we see
Definitely.
things. And anybody that says, and I will say this, anybody that says they have all the answers, they know exactly what's going on, they're either lying to you, they're lying to themselves, or a little bit of both. So nobody knows all the answers. But you have a couple of really interesting stories in your connection with the paranormal, the other side, if you will. Um, there's one story that that I'm particularly interested in. It occurred to you in Stewart a few years ago. You were with a friend. Can you kind of share that with the folks out there? What happened?
Yes, I would love to. It is fascinating. I'm glad you brought it up. It was such a an incredible experience. Yeah, it was a few years back, and a friend of mine, me and a friend of mine and her husband were out to lunch, And it was just a normal day where we were at, we're near the downtown area, kind of where the courthouse and all that would be. So we're down there, we're eating our lunch, and I got to share this part because it's so important. My friend who was with me, she's more open, a little more intuitive. Her husband, this is somebody, he's just a regular guy. He's not open or anything, not sensitive, nothing like that. So he's just this regular guy. But we're sitting in this restaurant, I'm starting to have I'm having communication with him about, he's asking me about mediumship and things like that. So we're discussing it. But what was really, really interesting is as soon as we stepped out the door, so we're done, we're getting ready to leave, he walks out first, and I'm walking behind him, and he was just taken back because what happened was when we stepped out, we were stepping into a past or another timeline. And what was really cool, he started expressing to me all of these things that were going on. He's seeing the town as it was a long time ago. He's explaining, and he's really taken back by this whole experience.
Okay, so what? Just to hold on there. So you're at lunch with your friend and her husband. He walks out. You're behind him. He sees Stuart, Florida, 70, 80 years in the past, maybe a little bit more.
Definitely.
Okay.
He's having this experience, and I'm there with him, and then I'm stepping in. Now I'm in this zone to now I'm in this time thing. He's explaining he's called by another name. He's looking at the city being completely different. I'm being called by a different, and just everything was completely changed. And for him, having this experience was incredible. And I'm explaining to him, I was like, well, I said, this is what happened. I said, you stepped into a timeline, back into a past life experience.
Let me interrupt here. So were you with him in that exact same time period that he stepped into?
Mine was slightly different. Mine was a little bit different. So even though he was over here having his experience, and I was I'm tapped in, so I'm to what's going on here. And then I'm also, it was very much the same time frame. And it was just really incredible. Everything had changed. The people, the town, the old coming up to him. He I'm trying to remember correctly, but the people of the town were approaching him as if he had a position. Maybe he was a mayor or someone important. This was just a whole phenomenon. The whole thing maybe lasted 5 minutes, but it seemed a lot longer.
Okay, and you saw him in that timeline, and you were watching people come up to him, but you were not in the same timeline. Yours was slightly different, you said?
Slightly different. It was about the same time era, but I'm kind of it's imagine almost like a split screen like this. Imagine that being. Okay. So he's here having his, and it's about the same time frame, and I'm here, and all of a sudden all of this is going on for me. So I'm seeing what's going on for him. But as people were approaching to me, what was they were, they would tip the hat. They, they were calling me doctor, and they were referring to him as someone. This man was absolutely freaking out. So afterwards, when I was explaining to him this, changed this guy's life. He was blown away, absolutely blown away by what had happened to him. And this is, again, so what's kind of cool is you never know. And we all of us are, we all have a sixth sense, or we all have an ability to be in tune. For him, for whatever reason, it happened so, what we would say, randomly or spontaneously.
I got to go back to the story though. So
Yes.
You're both standing there. Did it just blink and it was back to modern time after a few moments?
After a few moments, it started to fade. It's like it fades.
Okay.
It started to fade out, and what was really happening, boom, was back.
Where was his wife when this is going on?
She was also standing right beside him. Did
she experience anything?
This so interesting. You should ask about this. And I don't even remember how much we got into last time we talked about it. but she, at the time that was happening, she was having a download. She was not seeing anything that we were seeing. She had a presence come through to her, and um that which verbalized itself to her as Houdini.
Okay, I don't remember that.
No, I
Okay.
didn't. I don't even know if we told. So she's over here. She started. She was channeling this message or this spirit. She's totally in this whole other zone. Then we have her husband having his experience, and I'm kind of having the experience. It was real. It was it was a
Wow.
powerful. It was,
And then
it was one of the most
and then
powerful. Yeah.
experiences. Yeah, I know that you've talked about it several times. How is this? Obviously, it's something that probably caught your eye, but nothing you hadn't experienced before. Have you talked to this individual later in later years after it occurred, and how has it changed him?
Open. It's so interesting, and after that event, there were conversations about it. It was still one of the most fascinating, blown away experience. Here's what happened. He was definitely more of a believer. It opened him up. He
Mhm.
says, for him, he can't say what happened. He says, I don't know what happened or took place this day. It is this, but he definitely said that it opened him up. This is somebody that maybe just didn't really have any idea or belief one way or another. He was just kind of in between, and it opened him up to invest, to wanting to know more. He did seem to feel also, he opened up to a little bit like what we're talking about, a little more open to acknowledging that there might be something more than all that we have with our five senses, and something more is going on than just tangible, because he got to experience, like, yeah.
Yes, yeah, and so it profoundly changed this individual. Um,
It definitely did. And for me, it was just one of the coolest things, I think, for me, was that it was the first time that I had been where it was such a spontaneous thing with somebody who was probably the most unlikely person to have this experience,
was it a time slip type of thing, or was it
Definitely.
definitely a time slip
Definitely,
type?
because
Okay.
he was definitely back in time. I mean, obviously, because of, the way the town
Yeah.
looked, this was,
And
this
for
certainly
folks that
was
don't
a
know,
current time.
Stewart, Florida sits on the just north of West Palm Beach on the East Coast. It's a very historic town with a
Yes.
lot of history. So that's one reason why I find this interesting. We've
Mhm.
only got a few more, less than a minute left to go. Any parting words before we call it a night?
Well, I there's so much, there's still so much, like you said, there's so much we know, so much we don't know. I
You know,
absolutely I love being on the show. I love the paranormal, obviously.
no, and we really appreciate you being with us tonight. So thank you again, Mary, for joining us, and thank all of you out there for watching the show and being with us tonight. As always, please take care of yourselves, hug your kids, love your family, and we'll see you on the other side. Have a good night, folks.